What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today we are continuing our NFL draft rankings segment of the offseason. Today we're taking a look at interior defensive linemen. Last week we took a look at the edge rushers in this draft class, took a look at some of the big names, and gave kind of our loose rankings in some capacity as we went through the list that is presented here. And we're going to do the same thing here for these defensive tackles, these interior defensive linemen. You know, there's Mason Graham, there's Walter Nolen, kind of the consensus top two. Will we have those guys as our consensus top two, or will one of us have the Michigan man towards the bottom? Who knows? But before we get into it, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this wonderful Sunday afternoon? Another early record for Stay Hot.
I'm doing all right. It's interesting not edge class. That was last week. It's an interesting defensive tackle class. I feel like there's a lot of solid starters as you kind of go down it, but maybe not a lot of guys who are electric pass rushers was kind of my thought. Like I was very impressed with everybody's run defense and just the fact that, you know, they seemed like good glue guys, but I was kind of searching for, you know, the really high end tools, and that was just kind of my thought on this class overall.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that analysis. I like it overall, though. I think you do have, you know, defensive tackle, I feel like, is a position. Some years you just don't have a ton of great ones. This year, it's like you got a guy I think could be taken at the very top. You got another guy who has very much those tools, and you got a lot of other dudes who I could see sneaking into the back end of the first round. Now, maybe that speaks a little bit more to, you know, whether or not we're hitting 32 first round grades in this class. Right. But I like it.
Yeah. It's a good class overall. Certainly. But there are two at the top who do have the juice, I would say, to be like really an elite pass rusher and kind of elite in all phases. There's definitely a tier one to me. I don't know if you guys felt that as well. Or
there definitely is a tier one. Yes.
And are we in alignment that at the top of tier one, it's the Michigan man, Mason Graham?
Pretty easily, I think. And honestly, I think he's in a tier by himself.
I agree.
I can see it.
I agree.
I think that he is so fun to watch. Like, he is just a little ball of energy. Like, I would comp him to like an actual Wolverine. Like, Michigan recruited like a real life, kind of low to the ground, just ferocious, aggressive human being in their front four. Like, he's got a motor that just does not stop. He's so quick, and he just like, and another thing that stood out to me about him is like just his grip strength. Like, he's a bit, I don't know how big he is. Like, he hasn't measured yet. He wasn't at any of the bowls. He's
listed at like 300 or so pounds.
I've seen him as high as 320. I've seen him as low as like,
I feel like he's not 320. That might be big. I don't know.
He's listed on the NFL prospect tracker as 320 and 6'3". I would be a bit surprised if he measured in at those things. And I don't think his arms are very long either. I do
the
think
arm length is the one that's definitely, he could, if he weighed in super heavy, I'd be like, you know, okay, those guys like eat fish weights before they go do that at the combine.
They do got weights and fish.
They got weights and fish. But the arm length is definitely not great. But he easily makes up for it. I agree that he's fun to watch in the sense that there's a lot of guys who can be quick or who can have good burst. But Graham is sudden in a way where he's quick to power. He's not only getting off the ball, but he can give you 100% of his power because he's just so naturally strong right away, instantly. And that can stagger a lot of guys. And I think it's what makes up for maybe not having the longest arms in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And he's got this naturally low pad level. Like maybe he is 6'3". You'd never know it because he's always underneath everybody, which makes him very difficult to move. And I mentioned the grip strength earlier. Like once he kind of gets into you and latches on, he's very difficult to get off of you, man. Like I really feel like he's like on Blue Sea, another comp. If Wolverine is one comp, another animal comp that came to my mind was like a police canine unit that just like kind of grabs onto your arm or something and just like will not let go whatsoever. He is an animal. He's just someone with a lot of bite to him. Like he'll latch onto you, and even if he's not as big, it's not fun to get bitten by him because you'll, as an offensive lineman, you'll be doubling him. You'll be like trying to push him down the field, and it'll just be like, I feel like I've seen him with both feet off the ground, like just hanging on and then slipping through that double like somehow, some way, and tackling your running back for a short gain. Like he just has this ability to, no matter what position he's in, no matter the size disadvantage he may have, no matter like even if he's pushed to the ground, like he's comfortable on the ground. Like he'll I think he would love to just crawl around and
I think it's an interesting kind of
back
dichotomy.
up and tackle you.
Theo, you mentioned like, you know, he does have shorter arms, but he's so low to the ground. It is interesting, like the benefit of being tall and kind of this lanky guy on the defensive line is that arm length, and you can have such great extension and keep offensive linemen away from you. But then you look at like, you know, a guy like Aaron Donald, who was like 5'11", and part of what made him so good is like he was just great at hand fighting, and he's so low to the ground like already.
Yeah.
Like it's a different type of advantage that you gain in that interior position that doesn't always get, like people think like, oh, size, arm length. It's like, oh, well, you know, it's not like he has to like bend the arc, you know, it's kind of a different game here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It helps to be short, really. I think your ideal defensive tackle is kind of built like a tree stump. And if he's not, he can at least get his hands low or something, or just has overwhelming natural strength to make up for it. But yeah, like winning the leverage battle consistently just naturally is not a bad thing at all. And Graham has that. And he combines that with just something that I also think is kind of rare in this class is he's got the twitchiness to make plays in an open space. Like you look at him versus Grant next to him. If it's, you know, of tackle outside of his frame, he can really burst off 1 foot, like just kind of extend and ensnare these people, you know, in the open field. If he does break through and has an opportunity to tackle, he's probably going to make that tackle, which was kind of, I thought, rare in this DT class, is guys who kind of combine that strength with the twitch to bring everybody down. And that's another thing that I like about him is, yeah, he's got the raw like stumpiness and power to him, and he's so tough to move with his, you know, pad level and his wide base, but he's also got the twitch and the quickness, and it's a dangerous combination.
Finesse. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see him like when not around the edge, but where he can kind of need to dip his shoulder. I mean, he's quick enough. He's tried spin moves before. I don't remember if he landed a sack on one or just got close, but he clearly has a level of lateral speed as well that pairs with his power to give him a lot of different ways to win as a pass rusher. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm so high on him is I think even if maybe it's going to be tougher at the NFL level to do that, it still totally can be a part of his game. And when you can get both sides of pass rushing at once and you're a threat to do everything and you're good at combining moves together, I feel like so few guys are entering the NFL with good plans, but he does, right? Mm-hmm. And he's clearly got go-to moves, like his swim is fantastic. That make it easy for him to be controlled when he's rushing the passer.
Yeah, he's a blur, and it's hard to get hands on him. My weakness with him, the only thing I'll really say is like the short arms and kind of the size with him. He's not really this naturally powerful guy. And I do feel like he's always kind of got to go around you instead of straight through you. And he's so gifted when it comes to slipping through the tiniest crack. He's almost like water in a way, where like if there's a double team coming at him, he can really kind of slip through that tiny opening and get through there. But sometimes, like especially in the pass game, I feel like 4 sets of hands on him can just kind of shut him down. Like he can't really push one guy back far enough that it negates the double. So I thought he got engulfed a lot. I didn't see a lot of like really powerful bull rushing. And sometimes it's nice to be quiet as a trench player. Like it shouldn't always look like you are exerting this maximum amount of energy. Like it is nice when you can just get in someone's frame and walk them back slowly and push the pocket, right in the quarterback's face. And that's something I'm not sure that he totally has. And that's something that might prevent him from being, the Aaron Donald that, I sometimes see him compared to.
Just like the pure, like consistent, like strength, almost like that like endured power to kind of overwhelm somebody. Because his initial punch is great.
Yeah, he'll pop you right off the bat, but
right.
Can he keep that up? Does he have that kind of leg drive and that just overall extension?
I mean, I think he's not going to long arm guys, right? Which I feel like is a stereotypical thing to do. But to me, he is naturally powerful. I think he's incredibly strong, and I think that plays into his initial punch being so good, and it's the reason why he can win even with shorter arms. Now, the way he finishes plays might not be necessarily just like forklifting guys and driving them back all the time, but he's so good at disengaging from blocks and reading and reacting that I think stylistically what he does works incredibly well. He's my defensive tackle 1. I don't think anybody else is in his tier, and I think he's, without having watched everybody at the top as much as him, considering that we're only on our second position group, but I think he's a top 3 prospect in this class.
Ooh.
I don't hate that, Matt. I've been thinking about like, the Browns are sitting here at number 2. I've been trying to think about like, who would I want them to take? And I think there are 3 players that I would be like over the moon about. That's Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and Mason Graham. From there's one player that like I would like be okay with in the sense that like I think he's going to be good, and that's Ashton Genty. Like Nick Chubb wasn't himself when he came back. He broke his foot again. Like it's tough to see the vision for the run game being elite in Cleveland right now. I would be okay with them taking Genty. And then like if they have to take a quarterback, Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think I can get down with Mason Graham in the top 5 or maybe even the top 3. I think Genty, Hunter, Carter. I guess
I'll be real with you. I wasn't considering Genty just because of running back value, but I don't really believe that. So maybe he's 4 behind Carter, Hunter, and Genty. But I'll be real with you. Like, I think Graham, if Graham goes over one of those guys, even if it's not Genty, I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah. I do wonder if he's going to fall because of his shorter arms, and because I feel like at the very, very tip top, unorthodox play styles don't typically always win necessarily, but I don't know.
And we have the combine coming up this week. Thursday will be the first day. So, I mean, things will change kind of drastically in mocks once that all kind of plays out. So maybe, measures in really small, people kind of fall off on him a little bit. I could see that being a very real possibility. But if he puts up crazy numbers on the bench press, it might make up for it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he will. He's so built to do that. Like the shorter arms really help you do that because you don't have to lift the weight as far. So I think that it's fair to call him the second or maybe third best defensive player in the class, depending on where. Like again, a lot is still up in the air with Hunter's position, but I think he's a pretty good corner, and I think I'd take Abdul Carter above Mason Graham, just because I think Hunter is so elite with his first step, so good winning around that outside arc that, it's just so easy to envision him as a 10 sack a year guy off the edge right off the bat. And I don't think he's a bad run defender either, although he's not quite as dominant as Graham at it.
Carter just moves so differently. it's just hard to imagine a world where like someone's going to be able to have a plan for that day one, you know?
Yeah, and I think both of them are great pass rushers at their respective positions, but I think Carter is a little bit better, and then they're both a bit undersized. And then Graham's a lot better working through contact than Carter is at the moment, like definitely 100%. Yeah. But I do see him like he'll get doubled, Graham, and he'll, I think, get walked back maybe like a yard or two farther than you'd like to see, and then he like gets himself in some sort of weird wrestling position and like splits the double and makes the tackle. But there's always that kind of like maybe extra few inches or extra few feet of give with him compared to like the stoutest run defenders in the league, which I think it won't kill him. I think there's a lot of defensive linemen like that. Kobe Turner is great. Christian Wilkins is great. I think they kind of have that same thing. So I really like Graham. I do. And I think, yeah, definitely a top 3 defender in the class and a top 5 player probably overall. But I don't think he should go, first overall or anything like that. But it would be kind of tough for any defensive tackle to go first overall. I don't think that's like ever happened. So he's about as good of a prospect
you would
as
have
he gets.
You would have to be pretty nuts to go number 1 as a defensive tackle. I mean,
yeah, maybe did Mario Williams was he first overall for Buffalo?
I think
he was too.
How long ago was that?
I want to say that was 2004, maybe 2003, 2006. Okay,
wow.
But he was
first overall for Houston, not Buffalo.
NFL draft.
My bad.
Right.
Yeah,
My bad.
Mario Williams, Reggie Bush, Vince Young, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, AJ Hawk.
He only had 4.5 sacks his rookie year, and then he had 14 the next. Anyway.
He locked in. Anyway, that's Mason Graham. Should we move on to the consensus number 2, Walter Nolen? And do we have him all as our defensive tackle number 2? I do.
I also do.
Okay. You sound hesitant, though, Theo.
I mean, we'll get into it. I do, and I do think it's kind of clear. I do. I'm not hesitant about DT2 for Nolen. Matt, how about you?
I'm hesitant about it. I don't know. I didn't. You are betting on the tools. I think that sometimes I just didn't feel like he went into his pass rushes with a plan. I thought he was on stunts a lot. I don't think he's like particularly great with his hands. And I think anytime you're getting a player like that, you're running a risk because that won't fly at the NFL level, right? Mm-hmm. Now, he's a younger guy and he's super talented and athletically, like he was still a great producer because of his athleticism. And I think on like Twitter, those guys sometimes get underrated. Like people are too much. I guess it would typically be a guy who was maybe like toolsy and then didn't produce. He's toolsy and he did, so you won't hear as much about it. But I think those guys can get underrated because that stuff matters a lot, right? Like athleticism matters a ridiculous amount. But I do have my questions about how he's going to develop going from here, I guess is my thought.
100%. He's so much more raw than Graham. I mean, he plays with almost no technique, I'd say. Like I
think that's fair.
The nice thing about him, though, and the thing that really is special about him is I feel like you could put him like in the middle of a city street and then like send a tornado down the street with all the debris and like cars and shit in it and like have it pass directly over him just standing there, and he'd like pop out on the other side like whatever, like just standing straight up. Like I just feel like he could withstand any impact. And that's how
you are not beating the Colin Cowherd comparison agenda.
That's just what I feel like when it's like nothing can knock this guy over. Like how is he going into these rushes or these run defense reps? He's going into them like head and shoulders first, like not even using his hands at all. And like 2 guys hit him and like he'll just like glance off him half the time. There was a rep I saw from him on the goal line. Like they needed to get, 1 inch and they're in the end zone. And this lineman, fires off the ball, just needed to move him one foot back. And he does it. He like, again, he comes out of his stance, like his hands aren't engaged at all. The lineman like hits him and he just like glances right off of him and makes the tackle on the running back. It's like, how did you do that? Like there's not like, how is somebody who is so raw and plays with such little refinement and technique, like still so effective? And that's why like he's so tantalizing. I feel like as defensive line coaches, they must feel so conflicted when they watch him. It's like, wow, we got to kind of teach this guy the basics. Like everything he's doing is a stunt, or he's trying to just slip through a double team instead of engaging anybody, and he's getting like blown off the ball sometimes. Like it's terrible, right? Like so much of it is bad, I think. But also he's he's one of the most productive defensive tackles in the class. Like so you've got to be like, man, what? And the reps where he like does get his hands in the right place, or like he does like land a punch or something, like they're dominant. Like they're totally dominant. So
I almost wonder like if him just like not knowing or just like not having technique at all is almost not helpful to his production, because obviously like if he had great technique he would like break every record in the book possibly. But like I almost wonder if like as an offensive lineman, if it's just like jarring to see, and so it's like you almost don't know how to react. Like you don't know how to game plan for this guy because like he doesn't do anything by the book. He just kind of goes out there.
He just is. He's also somebody who I feel like if you took this whole defensive tackle class and you told them all to run until they died or something, or like run until you can't anymore, he would run the farthest and the fastest too. Like he's got this crazy stamina where like he's running stunts all game and he is exerting so much effort, I feel like, because he doesn't make things easy on himself. But it still just works for him because he just has so much energy and he's so violent all the time and he plays so hard. And that's another kind of positive to him, where it's like no one can knock. Like it's not like he's not trying, right? It's not like he doesn't have any technique because he's lazy. He's actually trying incredibly hard each and every play, and he's incredibly violent each and every play.
Yeah, no, it's a huge positive to have like. There is always the concern of like, well, he's not super technically refined, so we have to teach him that. But the one thing you don't have to teach him is like effort. And so like he's going to go out there and he's going to bust his ass. And if he can bust his ass doing like the right things, he's going to be like one of the best defensive players in football.
Yeah, and maybe it's the scheme that just doesn't really emphasize these lockouts and, these bull rushes. And he's always stunting. Like he is always trying to penetrate and open up space for a looper to come free. And some of that, you don't want to use your hands so much and get into their frames right away. You kind of want to play on an edge and just kind of rip through and contain the quarterback. And, so maybe it'll be easy where it's like, okay, we're going to put you in a scheme where you're asked to two gap a little bit more and you're asked to, just power step off the ball and engage with these people. And maybe he's like, okay, I'll be great at that now and it'll be easy, but maybe he won't. Like maybe that'll be a real struggle for him and he'll get washed out, because there's plenty of plays like where he really gets knocked back badly.
Yeah.
Did you watch his Senior Bowl footage at all?
Nolen?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see much of it. I was paying more attention to some of the lower guys at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he had some reps where, like, the other thing about it is, yes, it hurts him in run defense and he can get really pushed off the ball. Mm-hmm. But you also don't see a lot, or I didn't see a lot of, like, bull rushes on his on his tapes. Did you guys like really see much of him like pushing the pocket backwards?
No, I agree. And I think it's like a lot of a bull rush for most guys is going to just be like landing that first hand and being low and creating the leverage and then grinding out from there. And I think the way that you talked about earlier, where he leads, is not really conducive to pushing the pocket like that, no matter how strong you are. He might not get moved, but you still have to do work to move other people when everybody's, 300 pounds.
Yep.
I like him. Like, I agree.
Yeah.
It's almost like Williams, where it's like, I think the athletic traits are just hard to bet against at a point. Although I think I might be higher on Williams than Nolen. I don't know.
If you want to talk about Tyleik Williams,
I was talking about Williams from Georgia.
Georgia Williams.
I love Tyleik Williams, man.
We'll talk about him. I'm not quite done with Nolen though. I got a few more things to say.
Fine, but that's the Williams that I thought Matt was talking about.
No, I agree. You don't see him push the pocket much. And at the Senior Bowl, you just saw a lot of reps where, because he wasn't really comfortable just locking out and pushing the pocket, there's a lot of reps where he's just doing a lot to not win. And I kind of get the ick when I'm seeing a guy like chop and he's spinning and then he like tries to spin again. And it's like all this work. And he just like the tackle just like pushes him to the ground. There was a lot of that at the Senior Bowl for Nolen, I thought, where it's like he's this whirling dervish. He's, trying every move in the book, like back to back to back to back, and he's not winning. It's like, well, this isn't like a real pass rush plan that can even happen in the NFL. And second of all, you're not even winning when you're doing it. And that's a little like, I was like, that's a little bit hard if you're a coach watching that, to be like, oh, I'm taking him at 10. Like, I just love the tools so much, I'm taking him top 10. Like, he's got a lot of work to do, I think. He's got a lot of work to do, but he could be a worthy project. He's hard to push around. He can bend, tons of effort, tons of violence in his game, like some really high-end reps. Like, I can understand, we're in this to win the Super Bowl, right? We're not trying to pick, glue guys who are solid all the time. You're trying to find guys who can really be a part of a deadly 4-person pass rush, and you're trying to be the best team and the most talented team in the league. And I think Nolen, for as much of a project he is, he does help you become that. And those are sometimes the swings you have to take, I think.
I think that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to making the best hamburgers around, the basics matter. And Wendy's, well, they've really got those burger basics on lock, and boy, does it show. So what's the secret to all those hot and juicy hamburgers? Simple. Wendy's always crafts their hamburgers with that fresh, never frozen beef they're famous for. And the result? Hot and juicy, beefy hamburger perfection. Every time. No matter which hamburger you order from the Wendy's menu, you already know that thanks to those Wendy's burger basics, it's going to be exactly what you were craving. I mean, as long as what you crave is a hot and juicy hamburger. A hamburger made fresh, just for you, not waiting for you. After all, the perfect burger doesn't spend its time waiting around. So when you want a hot and juicy hamburger made fresh just for you, it's gotta be Wendy's. Fresh is kind of their thing, Fresh beef available in the contiguous US, Alaska, and Canada, not available in Hawaii. Do you want to move on to Williams? He is lower on grinding the mocks, but
you mentioned him. He's someone I haven't quite gotten around to. I got distracted watching some other guys, so if I'm not going to be able to weigh in here because I figured you guys.
Well, Blaiden is your guy.
Yeah,
he might be my DT3. I don't know, man. He is such a good damn run defender. There's a couple plays against Notre Dame where he's kind of like taking on double teams with like one hand. Like he drops to the knee, right, to kind of like dodge one. He like lifts the other guy up with one arm to move him out of the way and comes in and makes a tackle. I'm like, dude, this guy is so strong. He's got so much power. I think he could play nose tackle. I think he could play 3-tech. Like, he's just so big, so strong. His first punch is incredible. Like, to me, there's just like the pass rushing stuff needs work. There's consistency that still needs to kind of come into play. But I think as a run defender, dude, he can hang with anyone. I think he can just one-on-one, no one can hang with him, like, at all. He's too dominant and he's got long arms, extend, He's like, oh, ball's going to the A gap on the left side. All right, get out of my way. I'm getting it. Like every single time, man. Ohio State, I don't know what it is. I was watching for JTT and Jack Sawyer when I first noticed it, and I was like, who's 91? Why does he keep cooking these dudes? And then when we were prepping for this episode, I'm like, yeah, Williams might be the GOAT. I think he's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, I love him as a run defender. I mean, he's incredibly strong, and he does have a great anchor, but he's also quick enough and reactive enough to go out and make the play when necessary. I wouldn't have him as defensive tackle 3. I question if the upside is there as a pass rusher.
I think
for
that's
him
fair.
Straight up. He doesn't seem to have like a big bag. I don't know if he's got like some particular level of athleticism that makes me think over, I mean, a lot of the guys on this list that he's going to be able to rush the passer. So he's maybe one of the lower, I don't want to say necessarily low upside, but it does kind of feel like his skill set is more limited than everybody else.
I've
but he's a very
seen
good.
people say like fringe first round is kind of the common trend I've seen people.
Well,
say
that's
for
where
him.
all of these guys outside of, well, maybe not quite, but that's where a lot of these guys end up landing.
Yeah, that's where I was
you know?
at with like everybody that I watched. I was like second round, like I'd feel comfortable second round. I was like, am I going to see somebody that like isn't a second round grade at any point in this class? I still got to watch more defensive tackles, and I haven't solidified my top 5 just because I'm like, everybody's so close together, and I still haven't. And I look at like other consensus big boards. I'm like, there's still 5 more guys that are like interchangeable in this group. Like there are so many like second round DTs in
I
this
think
class.
when so many of these guys are so close together, you just kind of got to pick your favorite. It's just like, who's the most fun to watch?
Can I tell you who my favorite is? Is not on the. Have you guys watched? Well, I know that you guys have watched it because you all watch Nolen. It's the guy who plays next to Nolen, JJ. I looked up the pronunciation and now I'm messing it up.
Pegues or something.
Pegues,
right?
yeah, Pegues.
Yes.
I love him. Him.
That's your favorite?
He's my favorite so far of all the rest.
Okay.
And he is like this roly-poly nose tackle. And he can get on you quickly and like do all your typical nose tackle things like lockout, stack, shed. You know, he doesn't really get reached. He's a very solid run defender, definitely. But he also just has the weirdest auxiliary bag beyond that. Like he's got legitimate bend. Like I've seen him line up at edge, like beat the tackle and get a strip sack. Like he didn't really fully bend around and tackle the quarterback, but he got around the arc and reached his hand out and knocked the ball out as he ran by. I saw him try the Mike Green outside spin move. It was a terrible idea. He should never do it again. But he really did try to sell inside and then try to hit that wicked outside spin, and he fell flat on his face. I was like, Pegues, what are we doing? It's not Pegues.
But it's the attempt, it's the
Pegues.
effort that
It's the effort. It's and he's got real ability. Like if it's a tight corner, like maybe I saw him do a stab and grab where he's like long arming with one hand, and then the guard tries to reach him and he lifted the punch off of him, and he was moving the pocket back, and then the running back chipped him and kind of put a stop to it. And then after that, he kind of shed him, and like he really turned a tight corner and like hit the quarterback and sacked him. I was like, look at the ankles here. Like, look at the way he's bending as like a big nose tackle. Like he's weird. And he scored like 6 touchdowns as a short yardage running back this year. And he got like an interception at the Shrine Bowl. I'm like, this guy is
they put him in house
very
formation.
intriguing.
Okay.
Like he can, and I think he was top 10 amongst this class in true pass set win rate amongst defensive tackles. So like he's got some pass rushing juice. He's got like a good run defending base that like keeps his floor pretty high. Like you can involve him like in the offense. Like he's got just really good footballing athleticism just in general. I really loved watching Pegues, but that's a whole aside.
Athleticism.
Yeah, he's crazy athletic. I mean, with all those SEC guys, you can find someone on defense there, and it'll be like they're not considered even maybe a top 3 round pick, but they're they're crazy because he's very big for what he does. I totally agree.
He's going to rise after the combine too, because he's going to run the agility drills and he's going to kill them. He's going to murder the agility drills and really all the drills he could murder. Like he could get like a ridiculous RAS because he's big and he's going to run fast and all that.
His true his true pass set win rate was 33%.
That's pretty good.
Pretty high.
Where does that? Can you filter by the 2025 draft class?
It's 2025 draft class. That would be tied for 4th.
Yeah,
behind Devontae O'Malley, Keontae Hamilton, Chidozie Nwangwu,
big names,
and CJ West.
Where's Mason Graham and all this? But at any rate, he has more. Anyway, I know that he's not on the consensus pick board.
That's from the All-Star game.
Okay, yeah, he wasn't really that high. I think he was 10th. I think he was 10th. I'm sorry for all the listeners at home who want to know exactly where he was.
I'm fixing the numbers here. You keep talking. I'll let you know when I've got it.
The other thing I'll say about Ole Miss, number 1, Princely, whose last name I can't remember, he might deserve a spot in my top 5 edge list too. The more I watched him, that whole front is pretty good. That whole front is pretty good. Princely, he's got bend. He can threaten around the outside really well. Like great ankle flexion. It's not quite as ridiculous as Mike Green, or definitely not as ridiculous as Abdul Carter, but it's there. And because he has that and knows how to work his counters, like he's going to be an effective pass rusher. And yeah, he was somebody that I was like, maybe if Pierce has character concerns, and I still am not sold on like 240-pound power rusher Pierce, but I was like, Princely's probably about in that tier as well, I would say. Where he all stacks up, well, we can debate that later.
Of players with minimum 225 snaps, pass rush snaps, Pegues is 10th in true pass set win.
There you go. So
behind Peebles, Harmon, Alexander, Graham, Jackson Jr., Sanders, Banks, and O'Malley and Toya.
Pretty good. Yeah. Pretty good spot for him to be. So yeah. Anyway,
19.6 is the win rate.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a little bit of everything. He's really cool. So he might be my DT3 right now. But again, I'm sorry on this DT episode that I don't have them all. There's a million in this tier. There's just so many in this tier,
which is good.
Trying to be thorough.
Good. That's what we want. You want a lot.
He also has a good nickname.
Nickname?
The Mayor.
Oh hell yeah!
Actually, my hot take is I think we're better at nicknames now than we used to be. People are always
I
like,
saw you
back
talking
in the
about
80s. Yes, back in the 80s, we used to have good nicknames. Back in the 80s, we used to have a lot of nicknames. But how many of them were good? Many of them were terrible or like unusable. And I think now there's less nicknames overall. But when we have one, we've got a good one. Although I don't, but then maybe it's like in the 20s and 40s, we were at our nickname peak. Everybody had sick nicknames. And then in like the 80s, I honestly think we bottomed out. And now we're starting to recover here in the 2020s.
A new renaissance of nicknames. Interesting.
It's not necessarily a renaissance as much as we know when we don't got it.
I think that's fair, you know.
Regardless.
Back in the 20s, you had like Old Curly.
Right.
When do you, I saw you tweeting about the nickname section on Basketball Reference. That's one of the most random additions to any website on the internet. It's like,
awesome.
It's awesome. And Basketball Reference and Football Reference are some of the few good websites even left. Just in general, they're great. But I just don't understand where they get these things. Like, do you know who El Nino Maravilla is?
No.
Luca.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
the boy, what's Maravilla?
El Nino Maravilla, the boy from, it's probably the boy like from somewhere, if I had to guess.
Oh, I thought it would be like Marvelous Boy, maybe.
That could be true too.
because he was good when he was really young.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
the Wonder Boy, probably, right?
Okay, that's what I figured is it's the boy wonder is what it is.
Okay, that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
honestly.
But yeah, you
Matt,
guys want to move on
who's your
to?
favorite?
I don't know. I don't know if I do have a favorite. I kind of have mixed feelings about
goat.
this. On the one hand, there's some things that I really like about Kenneth Grant. I think that's the next guy that we should talk about because he's also next on grinding the mocks. Grant is one of these guys who is like supersized. He's still at 340 pounds. He's listed at. We'll see what he weighs in at the combine, but it's going to be pretty heavy. And he's a pretty crazy athlete. He was not only on the freaks list, but I think he was like number 2 or something nuts. Oh. And he's got that play that's been posted on Twitter a bunch where he I think chases down Singleton or Allen. I don't remember which one it was.
I've heard tell of this play, like in my
if you just go look up Grant and go to videos on Twitter, you'll probably see it. It's pretty crazy. Like he can move for a guy that's big. I mean,
he's so
nuts.
fast.
He is so fast.
Here's what Feldman said about him on Twitter. He says, Kenneth Grant was probably our youngest player on the freaks list last year. At 6'4", 360, he ran a sub 540.
I mean,
that's what he said on Twitter.
That doesn't even make any sense. And I think that strength can translate, obviously, and that overall speed too can translate to him like being super disruptive, of course. When his like bull rush gets going, it's one of those ones where it's like maybe he's not the absolute quickest out of his stance, like his first step or whatever, of course. But when he gets his hands on you, it's just like he grinds those guys down pretty bad. He also has some like relatively serious pass rush chops, I think, in terms of like there's a like he hit a nasty swim move on Seth McLaughlin, who was best center in college football last year in the OSU game. And he was part of the reason why Michigan ended up winning that one, although Mason Graham gets a ton of credit for it too. So I think when he's doing like his absolute best, you're like, oh my God, we have a guy here where he can two gap and he can like legitimately rush the passer. Maybe not ever going to be like a double-digit sack guy necessarily, but is he going to be a guy that makes it difficult to step up? Yeah, he's got a real shot to do that. And honestly, like for a guy his size, if this is your nose tackle and you can still get something out of him, like that's super exciting. The issue that he has is the same issue that I think a lot of guys his size has. It's pad level. It's so hard to get low when you're that big. And when you don't get low, your strength is really sapped from you. And then you might just be taken out of a play regardless of how big you are, right? You got to win the leverage battle no matter how much you weigh. Otherwise, we'd have every defensive tackle and offensive lineman weigh 400 pounds or 500 pounds, right?
Yeah.
But
that was my big note on him, was just like the leverage and the strength is kind of lost at times. And it is a concern. It's like, because that, I don't know if that's something you can, like, how do you fix that? You know, is it yoga? Like,
well, some plays he does play low.
Yeah,
it's
not
a
all the
consistency thing. So the question is like, can he get more consistent with that? It's a risk because when he doesn't, I mean, he'll get taken out of run plays. He can't rush the passer and whatnot. But I can't lie that the upside is not exciting. I would probably have him closer to being my 3 than like Tyleik Williams, because I think if I'm going to take a guy in the first round, I might want a dude where I feel like the upside is higher and it'd be the path to like really slamming the first round pick. And like, you got to get somebody like super value who can change the game. I might like my odds better doing that with Williams or with Grant than Williams.
Grant, yeah, that makes sense.
Grant is super intriguing for all the reasons you mentioned, Matt. Like the size obviously stands out the moment you see the first frame, and then you realize just how quick he is, especially early in the game. Like I watched the Texas game and the USC game and the Illinois game. And like I think on 2 of those 3 games, like the first play of the game, he like swims over the guard and like turns a corner and makes a tackle from the backside, like immediately out of the jump. He is like, I'm like, oh my God, like, am I about to watch like Dexter Lawrence, like on steroids or something like that? And there are And over the course of the game, like he maintains that quickness. Like he really is someone who gets in your pads really quickly. He's somebody who, can get up the field quickly. He's somebody who has more power rushing ability than the other guys that we've mentioned, I think, so far. Or I saw it more than some of the other guys that we've seen so far, like the classic blocking sled back. But it wasn't all over the place. I was a little bit like where I'd like to see even more of it. There was only a rep or two where I really thought that I saw it, but it was there.
It's there in the sense where it's like he can hit a swim move and then be quick enough to complete the play in a way where, I don't know. A lot of times we get a guy this big and it's like they're just too stiff and they're just too like they're just going to be pigeonholed into one role. I totally agree. It's like when you see him at his very best hitting it, you're like, oh my, like that is kind of like Dexter Lawrence, man. This could be one of those rare guys who's that big and can really rush the passer, but it totally is a consistency thing with him.
Yeah, and we mentioned that the pass rush win rate on the true pass sets and how like Pegues is 10th and, Darius Alexander, who we'll talk about, is 3rd, and Harmon is 2nd, and Graham is 4th, and TJ Sanders, who I really love, is 6th, and Nolen is 11th, and there's a lot of the guys who are at the top of this class and at the top of this list in the consensus rankings. They're at the top of the win rate. And then, Grant is at 34th, and he's got all this ability to kind of have these really jaw-dropping reps. But again, is he actually getting after the passer as much as some of the other nose tackles in this class? Like, no, he's not.
Right.
And as a run defender, I also think his tape is a bit inconsistent because of the pad level. And he's on the ground a little bit too much.
Yeah. And that's why you might prefer a Tyleik Williams to a Grant, because the other side of it is that, like, it would be one thing if he was just this big, beautiful, like perfect run defender.
Yeah.
And the pass rushing was just like, maybe we don't get it, but there's, you're so solid on one side.
He's like a DJ Reader type.
And then you're like, right? You're right. And then you're like rolling the dice on the pass rush. And if that hits, then you've got, Dexter Lawrence. That isn't what it is, though. The problem is that, like, his main issue also totally affects him in the run game, and he can be inconsistent there as well. And while I think, again, depending on how this shapes up, I get a team taking a shot on that in the first round, because I really do think it's still pretty good.
It's intriguing, yeah.
It's super interesting, man.
Yeah,
it is up and down.
It is up and down. I'm a little lower on him probably than most people. I think I see the vision. I see the
consensus 3.
Yeah, I do see him as, and even above Nolen in some cases, which I like. Again, Nolen is inconsistent as well, but
I don't know. I don't know
about all that. I don't know about all that, but I don't know. I just think that there are other nose tackles that I watched in this class that kind of more productive pass rushers than him, and were just as solid versus the run. And I was like, well, this guy is just a marvel, right? He's so big, but what is it equating to is it actually equating to better play than like TJ Sanders or Pegues so far? And it's like, but again, the draft is about potential, and he might have more of that. So it's kind of a tough balance to strike with me about him, but yeah, I was a little
with you on the draft being about potential. I always kind of my take is more and more leaning towards the guys kind of are who they are.
Treat it like free agency, like we're signing
in some capacity, like like you can try and bank on potential, but like more often than not, like you're not gonna change somebody. Like I think about it almost like relationships. Like you don't date someone for who they can be. You date someone for who they are, right? So, and that's kind of how I think about the draft. I'm like,
you were calling Theo Colin Cowherd.
I feel like
that's a. Although I have to say
that might be the most Colin Cowherd.
Also, like I feel like boys date for who someone already is, and maybe girls date for who someone can be. I think we need to work on ourselves a little bit more.
That's definitely true.
I think men need to reach their potential.
Here's the thing. I fundamentally believe people can change, and for that reason, I'm high on Grant. Well, I'll be real with you. Here's what makes the Grant evaluation tough. I actually don't know what the odds are that somebody can start playing with better pad level. I wish I had been like doing this for 20 years so I could like earmark like, hey, this is a time where a guy had bad pad level and then what happened, you know? It feels like that's more difficult to fix than anything else because I kind of think it's tied to how big you are. It just makes it harder to get low, but who knows?
I know like Chris Jones plays with bad pad level, but like it doesn't matter because he's so like naturally strong and like just nuanced in general. So it's like sometimes you can even overcome it. Like it might not be the like watching him. It's like, well,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be this total death knell if you're just dominant in other ways. But it's certainly,
right, but he's
would
not
help.
producing at the college level in the way that a Chris Jones does, right? Like it clearly is holding him back in some level. I do very much agree with the idea. It's like we talk about all these guys where it's like, well, they need to be able to do this and this and this and this is the next level. It's like basically every NFL player has like a major weakness that you would say like, well, you know, at this level, you can't get away with that. You know, it's common.
A lot of times that gets coached around, right? It's like
exactly.
You let a guy play in a role that he is strong in, and then you find other guys kind of fill that void. I mean, look at the Rams defensive line. That's their entire defensive line is guys who are like hyper specific
and that's
elite at one thing, and then everyone else takes care of the rest.
Right. And it's like, you know, that's why when I look at a guy like Mason Graham, is it unorthodox in some ways? Yes, but I'm like, I mean, it's gonna work. That's gonna work. I feel like, right? Even if it's not everything being prototypical for him all the time. So,
yeah, he's. I have nothing more to say. We can move on.
Who do you want to talk about next? Next in grinding the mocks would be Darius Alexander.
Ooh, I do want to talk about him.
Okay, take it away.
He is another guy with kind of picture perfect run defense, but it's at the MAC level. But I loved his pad level pretty consistently. Like he always got his hands in the right place. And he's got really good ability, I think, in his lower body to contort himself to the best possible body position to absorb certain blocking schemes. Like Grant, he's this freak, going back to Kenneth Grant, like he's a freak athlete, right? But we're talking about like, can he engage and like immediately drop his weight, like kind of twist his hips, like get on one knee. And when all his weight is on like one foot and the other leg is low. And like when you're pushing on him, he's not going anywhere. Like, can he do that? Because that is very crucial athleticism that defensive tackles need, that, you know, it doesn't really show up in a 40-yard dash. Like, oh, he runs these 360, he runs a sub 4.5. Like, okay, can he like get low in an instant and then pop back up and tackle? Like that is what I think Darius Alexander has at a really high level. And it made him just impossible to deal with for all these MAC teams. Like you just couldn't run at him at all. He would just, you know, do some stuff like that. I saw him on one play, like he was in such a weird position. So there was a scoop block, like one of the guards wanted to take a shot at him before climbing to the linebacker. He had like the tackle in one hand, he had like the guard in the other hand for a moment. And then like both knees were on the ground and his like feet were in the air. If you can envision that. It was like, what is going on here? Like your knees are in the ground, your feet aren't in the ground. Like like, how did you get in that position? But it works. Like he held that guard off just enough to protect the linebacker where he could go up and make the play. So I really like his functional, like again, the functional footballing athleticism here, like contorting his body in a weird position to, you know, be able to make a play in the run game. And he was knocking guys back, and he was just in general, I thought, just being really, really sound against the run. Like I don't even know if I saw him lose a rep in the run game at all at the MAC level, at least. Did you watch his game against your Miami squad, Blaiden? He murdered them. He murdered them.
Yeah, trust me, I know. I know. But, you know, it is always, we had this debate last year with Quinion Mitchell. We had this debate talking about Mike Green. It's like, yes, they're playing in kind of a lower standard of college football, but they're dominating at that level. right? And like to some extent, like you're saying, you didn't see him lose a rep against the run. What more would you have him do? Like really, truly.
Against the run, like there really isn't anything. And the passing stuff too, his numbers are pretty good. I mean, he ended up with the third highest true pass set win rate amongst the defensive tackles in this class. I could not find the film versus Pitt in the bowl game this year, which kills me because that's the best team that they played. And according to the clips I saw on Twitter, he had a great game and he was able to win in the pass game.
I saw some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was very productive. So like that's a box that he checked. The statistics, he does check these boxes as a pass rusher. He had, what was it? 37 pressures this year, which ranked 6th. And he also had he ranked high last year too in pressures. And we'll wait to see if the PFF thing loads here. But I don't know. He checks a lot about, and he had a good Senior Bowl. He was kicking ass there, and those are all kind of aligning, right? Like, okay, you're checking all these boxes that you need to be a top 50 player coming from a smaller conference.
Mm-hmm.
How old is he?
Yes.
I've been trying to.
That is a great question.
Ooh.
When is his birthday? I'm genuinely asking.
I think he's 25 at the draft. He's turning 25 later in this year.
This is the issue with Alexander, because if it wasn't for his age, even with him playing in the MAC, I would have him as my 3, maybe my 2. I think he's that good. You're totally right about him being great against the run, but what's exciting about him is that he has great tools to be a pass rusher. His power is awesome. In the Pitt game, he had that one clip where he absolutely knocked that guy back. In the Senior Bowl, he had that clip where he absolutely blew that guy up. I think he's very naturally powerful, but at the same time, when I watch him, my first thought is this guy's a fluid player. He's very fluid in the way that he moves. And there's some reps out there where it's like he'll threaten a guy outside and then break back inside and swim over and get through. I'm like, if this guy can be quick enough and fluid enough to threaten somebody in that way and can be strong enough to threaten somebody just straight down the middle, that's the tools you need to be a great pass rusher. And if we're talking about all of these guys like high second-round draft picks, guys that you got to work through something on, that might be the dude that I want over everybody else. Because he's got good long arms, like the pad levels there. It's like, it feels like even with him, it's maybe just about being more consistent rather than like just totally building up a pass rush plan from somebody who has tools, because he has a lot of very good moments and the production was there, even if it was at the MAC level. But he's going to be like 25. And
where are you guys seeing his? I can't find his age anywhere.
It's at there's on Steelers Depot. There is. Hey man, don't
Bro's
disrespect
like hiding
Steelers
his
Depot.
birthday from us, man.
I would too if I was turning 25, which I am later this year. Yeah,
you're still younger than a draft prospect.
I guess that's true. But he is a bit on the old side, and I worry that you'll bring him in and you might say like he's pretty good, right? Like he's pretty good. He's good against the run. He's got some pass rushing chops, but it's like, what more can he be? I guess is my concern. If you were to bring him in, is he a low ceiling type of player compared to some of these other guys? And I think his pass rushing, when I watched him on tape, and again I didn't see the Pitt game, I was wondering just how good his pass rush really was. Like I could tell, like from the run defense tape, like he had the potential to be a really good power rusher because he got so low and was knocking these guys back. And then eventually I did see the power and I did see the bull rushes and I did see that. So I was like, that's good. But I was wondering kind of just about his get off, and I was wondering about I wanted to see his combine, really. I'm like, just how good are this guy's tools overall? Like, how big is he exactly? Like, what level of athlete are we dealing with here? Because he is old and he is dominant against these other teams. But like, I'm sure, any Power 5 defensive tackle that we're talking about could dominate these guys, you know? So I guess I'm just waiting for the combine to see like how good his tools actually are. Because as a pass rusher, I thought like, I don't know if this could translate to like the run defense. And I'm sure a lot of other defensive tackles in this class, like Kenneth Grant, will we have any questions about how consistent he is as a run defender if he was at Toledo? Like probably not. He'd probably clown everybody immediately. So I liked his tape a lot. I really liked his tape a lot.
Ohio State, and I have no questions about his run defense.
But he's got to check all of these pre-draft boxes, and he checked the Senior Bowl. And he's got to check the combine next too, I think. I think I need to see some green in the RAS, even though we know that that's...
By this time next week, you should know.
It's not the end-all, be-all. Certainly not. But I do, for him and a smaller school guy, it's one thing for Bucky Irving, who was dominant at Oregon, right? And then he shows up red on RAS, and it's like, well, that shouldn't matter because he was dominant at Oregon. Right. For a guy coming out of Toledo... you know, you do want to see the Quinion Mitchell numbers just all the way across the board. And especially for someone who's 25 and might be just like, you know, as filled out as he can kind of be.
Got to go interview him at the combine. Be like, hey, what's your birthday? Are you hiding?
We know he's going to be. This is not a conspiracy. He's 24.
It's like, yeah, I was actually born in 2003.
I'm trying to. There is one guy, I can't remember what prospect this was. Like, I truly could not find his birthday anywhere. I had to wait until the Brugler's Beast came out, like way late in the process to figure out how old this guy was. And I can't remember what prospect it was. But anyway, Darius Alexander, very intriguing small school guy. He's my 5 right now. I've got him at 5. So he is there.
Fair.
And so that leaves us with, at least on the grinding the mocks list, Derrick Harmon, Oregon. He's the consensus 5 right now, it looks like.
Can't tackle, and that really hurts. He had a 33% missed tackle rate.
Oh my God. I didn't know it was that bad.
It's bad, dude. He's and like he'd be really high for me if he could tackle, but he can't. And I don't want to boil it just down to that, and there's more we can talk about.
That's insane. But I knew it was like a problem.
I hate how he tackles.
33%?
Like, what's that going to be in the NFL? Like 40? Like, is it going to go up?
Maybe.
You're going to miss half the tackle opportunities that he gets. Like, and the tape I watched of him was like, he's playing Genty, and he's playing like the Penn State backs, and like Will Howard is a slippery devil, right? But you got to bring him down. You know, everybody in the NFL is like that. So that was like the number one most glaring weakness of like any of the defensive tackles that I watched was like Harmon cannot tackle. And there's some easy ones that he misses.
Yeah. I mean, I like the way that he takes on doubles. He's a guy who can like drop down and put his knee in the ground and take that on. And I think he does have some chops. He's not like the most like agile guy necessarily all of the time, but he's quick enough and can strike guys well enough and can go in with a plan well enough to still win. And he had good pass rush production. I'm almost certain
he did.
He made a lot of big plays. I felt like against OSU, first time they played, especially he had one. He's a guy who stuck out just watching the game regularly as a fan, and I always overvalue that a ton. So I liked him as well, but I do agree. Being a play finisher is important, you know, and there's other guys in this draft that I'm high on because I think they are play finishers, and I don't disagree with you. It's tough when you can't actually get there and finish dudes off. So I still like him.
Yeah.
I still do kind of wonder if maybe it's like, is that going to go up? And the answer is like, it can't, right? He's not missing half his tackles.
No, yeah. Who knows what could happen, right? Yeah, it's definitely not the only
all of
thing.
College football in total missed tackles this year.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was just brutal to watch. Like, and he was balling in the Boise State game. Like, none of those guys could block him. And then it would come time to like get a hand on Genty, and he like couldn't do it. It's like, ugh. And it is Genty, and Genty's an amazing running back prospect, right? But it was consistent in the tape that I watched.
Yeah.
And as good as the Boise State game was, I watched the Penn State game and I was like, this is terrible. Like, I really didn't like that film. But then I watched Ohio State and he was good. And then I watched Boise State and he was good. So it's like, okay, he has power. Like, he's got these long, like, he's got power. He's on the all ass team. And I don't mean that like he's bad. So he's got that, and he's got the ability to drop on one knee, like Matt said, and hold versus doubles. And he's got kind of these long, like noodly arms, and like he'll get in you and he'll just kind of like he just like flings people kind of so easily with these long arms that he's got, and like he just generates almost like this whip like power in them. So and he can string together pass rush moves too. Like I saw him go like kind of from one thing to another and kind of counter smoothly. So there is a lot to like, but like his get off I thought was bad. He was getting reached in the Penn State game pretty badly. Like, just didn't love his overall effort, and like he can't tackle. So I was like, I don't know. Like, what do I do? I couldn't quite figure out how to feel.
I know PFF right now, they put out an article ranking their top 5 defensive tackles, and he was not on the list.
He has a tackling grade for them below 40 or 40 and below, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm seeing 29.3 from on regular season and postseason this year.
Yeah, overall low tackling grade below 30 for them. So, he also doesn't pass the name test, by the way, like Derrick Harmon. Can you see that on the All-Pro team?
I don't know. It's tough.
I don't know. I didn't come away super high on him, but I could understand why you would, if that makes sense. Like
Do you think you can teach him how to tackle?
He's got the tools. He just needs to go to hitting school.
Draft him for who he is, man.
He has not been to hitting school. You got to send him to like Denmark, kind of take some specialized courses from a guru over in hitting school, take some steroid. I don't know. Get some herbal cures.
Get some steroids, get suspended from the league, gamble, get banned from the league.
Come back, be the best tackler in the league.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah, he was okay. I don't know. I wasn't that moved, but
yeah, I think that's fair. Is there anyone else you want? Have we covered the entirety of your top 5? I should say.
I think so.
I had TJ Sanders up there too, from South Carolina. A Gamecock, Matt.
I know. I'm not as high on Sanders.
Wow. I mean, not wow, because most people aren't. And again, I got to watch more because I do think there's like a lot more in this tier as opposed to just him. Like, again, there's just a million of these second round grade DTs to get to. I liked Sanders a lot, though. Like, he's kind of narrow and he's kind of like thin, but I thought he was kind of a heroic run defender despite that. Like, his arms get on you like faster than anybody's, and he's really long.
He's very quick, he's very long, he's very aggressive, but I don't think he has like a crazy base. And I think there's a number of guys I'm realizing. There's very few people who are just straight up bad run defenders. And more so there's guys who are good run defenders and guys who maybe sometimes just play, I don't want to say out of control, but are just kind of trying to be aggressive and get downhill quick and hope that's enough rather than like stand up, take on a block, read and react. I think Sanders falls into that. And then what I don't like is as a pass rusher, he's got some great wins, but a lot of the times he doesn't go in with a plan. And if somebody can hold off sort of his first like go, then that's it.
That's 100% true. Like that is.
And if I'm going to take a guy, it's like, okay, so I'm gambling. So he's got to work through that. And he doesn't really have the base to hold up. It's just too much downside for me and not enough upside. I it's not that I necessarily don't think he can't like find a role and be good in it, I guess. But you've got two major things you've got to go, each on one side of the game. And that's...
I mean, I see what you're saying. Maybe I got to watch more of him as well. But I will say about the run defense stuff, like there are times where his base looks so great. Like there are times where there was a play on the goal line versus Bama. And I really think the goal line is a good time where you can really show what you're made of in terms of like holding up. And there are two Alabama guys who are firing off the ball and comboing him. And he seriously takes one guy in each hand and he doesn't move an inch backwards. Like this is versus Bama. And his linebacker is completely free. He scrapes and mirrors the running back on the cutback and he kills him on the one and they don't get into the end zone. And I had to rewind. I was like, what did Sanders just do there? Like he totally took two guys and just held them up beautifully.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And he did it, I think, one more time over the course of that game where like he's getting like a pure double here and he is just not giving an inch. But there's also the times where you're saying, Matt, where like he does get knocked back against singles or doubles or whatever. I'm like, what is with the inconsistency? And I think sometimes he, against down blocks and pullers, which he saw a lot of in the games I watched, he's like trying to get over the down block and chase the puller like kind of fast. And I think as he's doing that, he almost is giving ground, trying to get over the top of somebody all the time. And in those moments, he kind of can get pushed downfield. But I also don't think like he is trying to get over there for a reason. That's where the run is hitting. And sometimes he made tackles over on the other side of the field because he did a really good job diagnosing that quickly. So I think he's got some real juice as a run defender, despite kind of this lightness to him. But I 100% have no disagreements, or I won't push back at all on your pass rush plan thing. Like, I feel like the guards would vertical set him and like they'd give him this time and space because his pad level would rise. He'd just like stand straight up and he'd like chop his feet going at him. And it's like, what are we doing, guy? Like, get off the ball. And then he'd like do this like comically exaggerated swipe and it would like miss. And I would just be like, oh.
Like it's like if a cartoon animators, like you go to Disney and it's like draw a pass rush set. draw a pass rush plan.
Bro,
and
come
there's
on.
like,
So maybe he should be my top 5, but he's someone that I have a pretty high grade on because his quickness and he's such a good runner, and I feel like he does see the game kind of one step ahead sometimes, and I do think like he's got so many just picture perfect run reps for me where he stacks, sheds with timing, like falls right into the gap for the running back, like tackles him. I'm like, wow, that was beautiful. And there were just so many reps where I just ended up saying like, wow, that was beautiful. But I see what you're saying as well, where it's tough to bet on like a lighter guy in that sense and someone who doesn't have a great, crazy pass rush plan. Although he does rank highly in the pass rush win rate despite this. So, you know, he's got some quickness and some length
That's
to
true.
bull rush where it's like, despite these issues, like he still is somewhat productive.
still producing, yeah.
But I don't know. He's a sleeper that I kind of like. He's someone I'm kind of high on.
PFF agrees with you, Theo. They like him. They have him at 5, I think. So
Really?
yeah.
Shout out to him.
Shout
Shout out to him. And then I also watched Deion Walker out of Kentucky and then Yaya Black out of Iowa, but we're kind of getting along. So
I think Yaya passes the name test.
Yaya Black, definitely.
Yeah, that's a goated name.
Deion Walker is one of the craziest prospects ever, by the way. Like, just the Kentucky guy is like 6'7", like 340. He's huge.
Oh, yeah.
His get off is just standing straight up. It's crazy. Like, I'm like, God, come on, dude. Like, you can't, like, he doesn't get forward at all. It's just like he's going from a 3-point stance to like just like standing like you normally would. But he's like blessed with this like TJ Watt level hand fighting. But he just like can't do much with it because it's like his pad level is bad and he like can't corner to the quarterback.
His pad level's really bad.
His pad level is the worst ever. So it's like, but no one could get their hands on him. Like the Ole Miss game, I was dying just because like the guard would get ready to punch him. He like wouldn't come. And then he'd start like going towards him and the guard would throw his hands and Walker would just like parry it so like no one could get their hands on him. And it just wouldn't matter. Like he couldn't get to the kid. Like the quarterback had thrown the ball. I was like, I feel like this is how Jokic would play football. Like he'd stand straight up and do some like masterful hand fighting stuff. And then he couldn't catch the quarterback at any point. But Walker does have a lot of pressures and sacks and stuff like over the course of his career. So like he is getting there sometimes. And there is something intriguing about that play style to me where it's like, I think he's so smart. And I actually looked, I was so sure he had played basketball before because he was so tall and just didn't really have the natural like low to the ground ability. So I'm like, this guy must be a former basketball player. And he was. And like his high school coach was like, he wasn't just a big bruiser. He was somebody like who could hitch backdoor passes from the high post. And he was like kind of a dimes like guy. And I'm like, wow, he really is Jokic. Like, Jokic playing football.
He is Jokic.
He's kind of interesting. But I don't think I have a very high grade on him.
I think I'm going to tweet out later. Does anyone know Jokic's last name? I think I'm going to tweet that out. Just
definite hit.
Banger
and then
rage baiting in 2025. Let's go.
And then Black from Iowa. He was just crazy strong. Like he's also extremely huge and tall. And like he is so good at locking out and like looking dominant for a second. But then it's like everything beyond that is like, okay, you got in good position. And then like, what did you do with it? It's like, there's a couple good run reps a game, but there's no pass rush. And like, there's not a lot of twitch.
Common trend with these defensive tackles. They can't rush the damn passer.
I'm saying, man,
they'll get the quarterback on the way to the
if
run.
You want to run, this is a good run defending tackle class, like glue guy tackle class, it seems. And there's still more to watch. So when I find someone with juice, I'll let you guys.
And you know what? The NFL needs glue guy run defending defensive tackles because no one can stop the damn tush push. Like the Eagles beat up on everyone, just giving Saquon the ball and then QB sneaking whenever they needed a yard.
I don't know if there's a tush push stopper out there, man. There's plenty of good defensive tackles in the league already.
Mason Graham could. I don't know. We'll see. His pad level's low enough.
He needs. I don't even like. There's just no physical way to like. I think new physics need to get invented. Like the simulation
Chris
needs
Jones
to be like
tried
recoded.
To like lay across the goal line and he still couldn't stop it.
Yeah, I just don't think like there is a way. I think Jalen Hurts needs to like go on hunger strike maybe over.
Jalen Hurts goes on a diet.
If he goes on a hunger strike and becomes gaunt and thin, I think that's how you could stop the tush push. You just need to find an issue that he cares about enough to do this.
So true. But
I like that strategy.
We need better Dickerson. Like really any point along the Eagles offensive line, we need to get him to become very thin, very fast.
Very thin. You just got to get Jalen Hurts to stop squatting and it'll
squatting is actually horrible for your back long term, and put that on his For You page.
Surely he's watching TikTok health gurus, I'm sure. But if you guys don't have anything else, I say we get on out of here, and I'm gonna go record a new album. So thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. It's been an absolute blast. We'll talk about some more draft prospects. We'll do some more off-season kind of preview stuff. Combines this week should be a lot of fun. But until our next episode, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.